Will we see the Santa rally? We need to talk about it. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education, and if you want to start off the new year in a cool way, try putting your 2024 calendar in the freezer. We're going to take a look at SPY, QQQ, IWM. I even want to talk about another ETF that's in there, a couple of different stocks for you, and give an update on crypto. This is going to be a good video. There's a lot that's in it, so make sure that you pay attention. I'll also tell you later if you want to see how I'm playing my buys and sells. You can do that over at the Patreon. Also about my options course that's also available over at the Patreon, and then about the free stocks from Moomoo. Let's start off by taking a look at SPY, and I have the chart up here for you. Take a look at this trend line right here, because this is what we've currently been riding on as far as support. And if I put another trend line across the top of this, we want to make sure that this doesn't turn into a double top for us. Now, if it does, then that could be Santa rally spoiled. We want to watch and see if we break down through the bottom of this trend line, or if this works as a continuation pattern. It lets us sail on up to about 480. We'll see if we get that. And then up above there, we have a trend line. Let me change the view on this. There we go. We have that trend line up above there, right at about 484. So that's 1 to 2% up. So we'll see if we get, I think 1% is reasonable. 2% would be astounding. But remember where we're at. If we look at this on a daily basis, so going back out here, we are just teetering around that overbought territory. And if we go out to a weekly basis on this, and again, this is the SPY that we were looking at here, tracking the S&P 500, you can see we've just tiptoed into that overbought territory. So expecting a lot from here without further settling, I think would be a little bit troublesome to try and take really long bets on this, but I do think that we still have some further upside, and we could possibly see it, and I do think that it comes back to those trend lines that I had for you on the hourly chart that we need to look and see. Should we follow this continuation pattern up and hit 480? I think that's a good likelihood. If we break down through this bottom trend line, we could interpret this as a double top, which could be bearish for us, and then we want to see that hold 467. If that should break, we got a pretty far way to fall from there. So we would be watching for that. Watch for this top trend line. And that price, by the way, on SPY is about 475. So if we're able to pop 475 solidly, we should be in pretty good shape for that. Moving over to the Qs, here's the hourly chart we got for this. And you can see that it is a lot the same as what we had for SPY. So going back all the way over here, there we go. You can see that trend line. And again, right across the top of these things, this could easily turn into a double top for us, or it could possibly be that continuation pattern that allows us to break out of this, and maybe we go and we visit. Let's adjust our view here a little bit so we can see a little bit better. So we could see this pop up to possibly from wherever we're at right now, which is about 409. It's possible that we see another 1% to 2% come out of that. So that would be 413 to 417. Probably more likely 1%, 2% though would be absolutely incredible. Moving over to IWM, once again, we have pretty much the same view as we saw with SPY and QQQ, and we want to see what we get from this. Although I will say for these small caps for the Russell 2000, it is looking like we actually have slight more bullishness. We actually have a bullish bias to this one as we take a look at this, and what we see is an ascending triangle pattern on this one, which is another continuation pattern that could tell us that possibly that we continue to pop out of this. And if we go out to the daily chart, we can actually get a little bit more flavor on where that could be from where it's at right now. And it looks like that peak could be somewhere around 206 to 207 where we closed out. And let me see where we're at right now. In the pre-market, we're at 202. So we could possibly see, again, 1 to 2% as we look at the Russell 2000 small caps. And then looking at XLF, we got to be careful that we don't run into this head and shoulders pattern that I have on here for you. If we do break out of the top of this, we actually have to overcome that price of about 38. Above 38, we actually have a little bit more bullishness on this one. And below 37, we actually have room down to about 36. So we would be watching for that. If we go out to the daily chart to see how we've been trading recently, you can see this channel that was brought to us by Learn to Trade, which is a member of my Patreon over at the Discord, one of my community members. So we can possibly see that return back down to 36 and then maybe bounce. We'll see if we get that as support, or if we come down more like to 35 or so if we do continue to sell off from this slightly overbought territory. But right now we do have $36 per share in the financial sector, which has had quite a run recently, and coming off of that overbought status, we'll see where we find that support in the meantime. Let's move on to a couple different stocks that are out there. FDX, looking at FedEx, we actually are just above the 200-day, which is still a bullish thing. Now, mind you, we could settle off of here. We are down below the 50-day SMA and EMA, and so for FedEx, missing their guidance moving forward into 2024, not a great sign for the markets. It's also not a great sign for themselves. But as you look at this, check out the last time that we crossed down through that 200-day. That was back in the sell-off that ended at the end of October, and then we had a decent rip Off of that, as the market rallied, so did FedEx stock. There's another bounce off the 200-day. So if this thing does break for us, it is one that we could see further bearishness out of it down to about 240. And down below that, we have room to about 225. We're going to have to watch for that. These white lines are historic trend lines that you see on here. So it's almost a bit of confluence between the 200-day and the trend line at about 243. Down below that's 240. And then to the next trend line that we have down below that is right around that 230-ish mark by the time we might get there. And then down below that's 225. And I do not think that we would drop down below 225. We're going to have to watch that and see for FedEx. So for FedEx, I think keeping this one on your watch list, finding out where that bottom is. If we hold support at the 200-day, then we have the 50 days up above the SMA, EMA. Those are ones that we could find as resistance. If we fail to break the 50 days, we could come back down, retest support at the 200-day, and then break down in a further bearish direction. So that's what we want to watch for FedEx. Nike actually closed down below its 50 and 200-day, signaling further bearishness here. Now, something I actually should go back and mention on FedEx, you'll see it here in Nike, is when we look at a weekly basis, we are right near that cross going over the 50 on the RSI looking for this. And FedEx is going to be the same thing. And that could actually signal a longer-term downtrend for us, that both of them being near that 50 cross. As a matter of fact, we're at 48. So we actually did cross it, but we are right near the 200-day support. So crossing that 50, bearish on the RSI on a weekly basis, could signal a longer downtrend. So FDX could see a little bit more bottoming, and then Nike will have to see if we bounce off the 50 for RSI or if we continue up from there. So we'll happen to see where that goes. Remember, on the daily chart, though, we are down below the 50 and the 200, which is a bearish signal. So we're going to have to watch for that. We haven't quite hit the oversold territory for that. Now, an update on Nvidia for the cup and handle. You can see the prices as they're moving along. Look at this. Followed right along the trend line that I had drawn on here, saying we could possibly see a cup and handle come out of this. So far, that handle's continuing to form out. We want to see that break through the top of the trend line for further bullishness for Nvidia. So that's what I'm watching for. For Palantir, I'm watching to see, should we actually break up through the top of this trend line? We had some peekaboos in these early hours that we have that aren't quite the regular trading hours. We're going to have to watch that. I think that this is a really excellent trend line here. You can see that we're squeezing it on those prices. We have consolidation as per the RSI on the hourly chart. Will we break down through that 1714? We're going to have to wait and see. I do have a put option out on this, so I'm waiting to see if that's one that I get to cash in for a profit, or if it's one that I have to continue to wait on for that one, or if it's one that I have to step out of because it broke into a bullish direction. Let's take a look at Palantir on the daily charts. So looking on the daily chart, where are we at right now? Well, we actually have the cross of the 5 and the 13 and the 50 for the EMAs in a bearish direction. We're also bearish as per the RSI, and we're down below the 50s. We are still up above the 200, which is a bullish thing, but we are dropping now. We're going to have to wait and see if that support should hold for us. For Palantir in the pre-market hours here, trading at 1744, whereas it closed last week at 1741. So we're about even from where we closed out on Friday. Now, here's a new one to bring to you. This one is Trade Desk. And what we're looking at is the bearish channel that Trade Desk has been trading on. And we are actually near. Look at this. We're looking at the daily chart on this. We have the 50, which is here, the red one. And there's also a blue one that's nearby that one. Both of those are the 50 days for the SMA in blue and the EMA in red. And we actually had a decent volume sell, but it took us down to that 50-day pretty much exactly. And check out this trend line that we're currently squeezing on. We'll watch and see if we get that bounce and it sends us back up to the top of the channel, which could be a bullish thing, especially if it breaks the top of that channel. So we might get that reversal, but then we might also break down through that, which the 200-day is sitting right there. You can see the 200-day coming up this way. Breaking down below that would be further bearishness, and the RSI is showing us almost across over 50. So it's almost getting time based on the EMA crosses that we have here and the SMA, the 200 SMA for support. Breaking down through that is bearish. So we have a bearish channel, and should we break down below that, we have further bearishness to look at. I think this is an excellent potential short play coming up. Not financial advice, not telling you what to buy or sell, but this is one that I'm watching, and I think that you should be watching it too. And then moving on from there, I do want to just pop in real quick before we get to crypto to let you guys know, if you want to see how I'm playing this market, you can check out my buys and sells over at the Discord, available through the Patreon, which also has my Nvidia and Tesla stock price prediction and earnings projections. And then I also have my options course over there as well. which you can see how to amplify the power of your portfolio by using options in order to do that. And then also I trade many of my options through Moomoo. You can find a link for that down in the description as well. You can get up to 15 free stocks for qualifying deposits and 5.1% on your unused cash. So go ahead and check that out. With that said, let's get back into the charts and we'll talk about crypto. So Bitcoin is one that before the weekend came along, I actually cashed out on my Mara position that I had on that, as I felt as though Mara's price started to detach itself from the behavior of Bitcoin. And so that was one that I was like, well, I think that Mara's starting to get a little bit frothy, and Bitcoin has been trading sideways. I'm going to hedge my bets that selling my Mara position, which I sold for, I got rid of the paper, but I do have it posted over at the Discord, and I have also logged 50% gain, 50% profit on my Mara call that I've had out, that I closed. I think I opened it on either Wednesday or Thursday, cashed in on it on Friday, saying that I don't want to bear the weekend risk on this. I'll get back into it. I do still think that Bitcoin could show us further bullishness, that I think right now we're actually getting another one of those. There we go. Actually, I have the technicals on here for you already. All right. So you can see what's happening right here, that we have that narrowing down happening. We have to watch what part of this trend line, of these trend lines, we pop out of. Out of the top is bullish. And you can see with the Fibonacci's that are on here up to about 48.6. Now, mind you, I think it's possible we'd even pop above that leading up to the Bitcoin ETF decision. We're going to have to watch for that, and that's within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we're going to have to be watching for what news comes out. ETF approval, I think Bitcoin's going to go nuts. But leading up to it, I think there's going to be a sell-off regardless of what the decision happens to get made for the spot ETF for Bitcoin. We're going to have to watch. Down through the bottom of this trend line could signal that we are actually seeing a double top on this. There we go. And so when that would be confirmed is down below 41,000, which could drop us back down to 38,000, or even have 36,000 down here as per the Fibonacci. So we're going to have to watch and see what we get from that. Watch the trend lines, see which ones we happen to break out of. RSI is still in bullish territory. However, and you can see that we're consolidating, even though we're in bullish territory, we need to stay up above 50. So if the RSI comes down and touches 50 and then bounces, that could be a very good bullish sign for us. If it crosses down below that and also breaks this trend line, that could be confirmation that we're up for a sell for Bitcoin. So we have to be watching for that. Over to Ethereum, same thing here with the trend lines. Watch and see if we break out of the top of this or if we break down through the bottom. And the RSI also starting to settle as well as we look at this one. And then AVAX, we actually see a tapering off of the RSI here from the overbought territory as the price continues to rise. That could be seen as bearish divergence and could be something that might send us heading back down to some of these support lines that we have at 43, around 41, around 38, and around 34 to 35. So we're going to have to be watching that for AVAX. And we also need to watch, even though we're in a bullish channel right now, it really does matter where we find that support. Let's go to the 4-hour chart because we can see it a little bit better. There we go. You can see the behavior that we've actually had in AVAX. And on a 4-hour basis, we're actually crossing down into bearish territory, but I wouldn't say in a solid way, especially being that we're up above the 50 period SMA and EMA. Here we want to see if we catch that as support, even if we do peekaboo down below this channel that we're currently in before we continue upward. So it's all going to be a game of watching where that support happens to be, because I think that we're possibly see a little bit more downward movement in AVAX before we find out if we have any sort of significant bounce. And going back out to the daily chart, because there's one other thing that I wanted to show you on this. So let me grab my art tools here. All right. So we just want to be very careful that we don't actually see this turn out. There's a shoulder, there's a head, and we want to see if we do drop off on this and then pop back up, we want to make sure that we're not getting a head and shoulders pattern out of this one. So that's looking to the future, so that way we can plan accordingly for the potentialities that are out there, the different moves that it could make, versus the ones that we actually think it's currently making. So we want to be on the lookout for that, because sometimes by looking ahead, we can see those play out. So far, it's working for Nvidia. We'll see if it continues to work for AVAX as we see it right now. The top side of this, I'm still looking for $52 per AVAX for Avalanche. So let me wrap this thing up for you. Could we see the Santa rally? We absolutely could see the Santa rally happening. 1% to 2%, I think, is possible this week. SPY, QQQ, IWM, financial sector, XLF, that is an ETF that I think could possibly cool down in the near term before finding support. And then we'll see if we continue to rally for a little bit longer with that one. FedEx and Nike, keep those on your watch list, because there's a big move coming for them over the next several months or several weeks. We'll have to watch and see where that bottom is, and wherever they do tend to bottom out, I think that we'll have a significant rally coming up off of that. So we're going to keep on watching those. Nvidia, watch that cup and handle play. Absolutely crucial and important. Palantir, we'll see if that short play ends up working out. I'll stick around for 2 more weeks in that position, potentially up to that long, but no longer. At that point in time, if it doesn't make the move that I wanted it to make, then it doesn't make much sense. I'm going to have to cut my losses and step out of that one. Trade Desk, I think, is one of the best possible short plays out there, at least as far as the technical basis goes. So keep an eye on that and see if we treat the 200-day as support, or if it's one that we actually break down through and it sends us back down to the bottom of the channel, which, by the way, is rocking just below $60 per share at the bottom of the channel by the time that we might actually get there, with 60 being an area where we actually find some pretty solid support. So that would be like a $12 move from where we're at right now downward from there. So that one is pretty cool. I'm going to keep watching that. I'm going to watch for the right signal to come along. Should it come along, and it might provide a wonderful short opportunity to make some extra cash using some put options, for example. And then, of course, crypto, I think, still has its moment in the sun, its moment to shine. I don't know if we continue selling off from here. We're going to have to watch those trend lines that I was talking about to see which ones we break out of. Should we break down to the bottom, we're going to have to find out where support is and keep on watching the technicals as they play out. And I'm going to keep on coming here onto YouTube and talking with you guys about what I'm seeing in the charts, whether it's stocks or crypto. I'm just going to keep on providing those updates. And you guys can find me over at the Discord, available through the Patreon. That link is down in the description. Come on over and join me and my other community members and see how we're playing this market and benefiting from it. And then also don't forget about your free stocks from Moo. Guys, thank you for watching. As always, I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning, and we'll see you in the next video.